September 21st, 2024 is the day that I completed my first 100-mile ultra marathon. As you can see here, I did it in 29 hours, 45 minutes, and 39 seconds, and that's exactly 163.72 kilometers at a 10-minute per kilometer pace. And I'm going to preface this video by a famous quote in the ultra marathon running world that goes, if you want to run, run a mile. If you want to change your life, run a marathon. And if you want to talk to God, run an ultra marathon. So let's take it all the way back to the moment that I signed up for this race in January of 2024 and why I did such a thing. So at the moment of January, I felt somewhat misaligned. I was running this company, Optimability. I had broken multiple powerlifting records, completed Ironmans, ran multiple marathons, and I was pretty strong. I was just kind of trying to make all parts of my fitness fully potentialized, fully max out the potential in every part of my physical fitness that I could. However, it was quite a while since I last did something cool with my body. And so naturally, as an avid David Goggins reader and content consumer, I figured after the Ironmans and the marathons, the most natural step forward was to do a 100-mile ultra marathon. And there's ultras out there that start at 50 miles or even 50 kilometers or even 100 kilometers. But I decided 100 miles was probably the challenge that I needed most in my life at that time. So I went ahead, I typed into Google nearest 100-mile race in my location, and it spit out something in Easton, Washington. You've probably never heard of this. I never heard of it, but I'm in Vancouver, BC right here. You can see the mountains, the water behind. So if you go down to Seattle and then an hour east of Seattle in Washington, that's where that race was. So it was pretty much entirely in the mountain, in the middle of nowhere, right along the highway. And I signed up, and naturally, the feeling that first came up was I'm nervous, but more than that, I just felt really lonely. And so what I did next was I recruited as many people as I possibly could to join me for this 100-mile race, and I found three people. So I found my good buddy Evan Pattison, Dylan, and Dante. And so these guys, they signed up for the race. Unfortunately, only one of those three were able to make it to the start line. The other two had some other issues come up with not training enough, not having the right preparation. Also, just dates were kind of wonky. But 9 months out, and there I was, figuring out what is my training plan, how am I going to eat, what am I going to do. And naturally, the next best thing that I did was I searched up somebody that I wanted to be like. And so Nick Bear, he had done a 100-mile ultra marathon by this point, and I was like, let me train like him. He's a big, muscular guy. He's also doing ultra marathons. He's done an Ironman. I want to see what he does. Naturally, I looked at his training schedule and it wasn't what I had anticipated, so I did something else, and I'll actually pop the training right here. And it really started like 4 days a week, so I hit the ground strong. Monday I would run, Wednesday I would run, Saturday and Sunday I would run. And Saturdays were my long run days, so that was where I had to simulate what it would feel like waking up from that Friday and then running from the weekend Saturday and then also running on Sunday. And that's where I was running like 30-kilometer days, 40, 50, as high as 60 kilometers in one day on the Saturday long runs. And then on the Sunday, it would be like a smaller run, but it was still pretty aggressive, like 10, 15, 20 kilometers at the max. And then Monday, Wednesday runs were like 5 to 8K, nothing crazy, just like some small intervals, get the heart rate moving, keep the legs going. And one of the biggest things I did not anticipate was a level of fatigue, especially trying to scale a company, especially an online company. It was like I was working from home, but I was so tired throughout the week that I would just nap, just spontaneously. It was like I had narcolepsy. I would just like go into my living room, sit on the couch, and just fall asleep for half an hour. So that's the one biggest thing. If you are watching this and you're anticipating what to expect, you will be so fatigued from all the mileage that you're going to be taking naps like never before. And the next thing that I will say is that you definitely want something to track your progress. I have the Garmin Forerunner 965. I think it's about like $600-700 on Amazon. This is an amazing watch, especially if you optimize the battery life. It lasted me all 30 hours of my ultra marathon. And then I hook this directly up to my Training Peaks account, and it shows me how I've ran, how I did in performance throughout the entire week, my sleep, my calories as well if you have MyFitnessPal. And that's what really kept me accountable, because I had the ability to track my recovery, make sure my HRV was in place, make sure my sleep was good before my training day, and ultimately bringing all those things together is what I believe led me to cross that finish line that day. Now, leading into the actual race itself, I did plenty of marathons, plenty of training, but one thing I would have done differently is if I had more time than the 9 months I gave myself, I would have definitely trained a little bit harder and taken it more seriously. If I had 18 months, it would have been much better. Many, many more miles on my feet would have taken place. And so that's the only thing I would say is if you have the ability to take more time before the actual race, you will position yourself better. You will make sure you don't have a stress fracture like I did, and we'll get into that in just a moment here. But getting into the actual race now, going into it, I wasn't really aware of what was yet to come. I had just the typical war mentality of locking in because I had done Ironmans and marathons and mountain expeditions, but I had never done something like this. So it was the typical wake up at 4 a.m., get the breakfast ready, get your bag ready, all of your gears is locked in and in check. And then you're at the start line, they count down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And eventually you're hitting the ground running, and next thing you know, it's you're just kind of moving in like a good cruisy pace, and then you suffer, and then good cruisy pace, and then suffer. And that was the whole race for 30 hours. So jumping into the first 10 miles, it was extremely enjoyable. We were in a big group. Everyone kind of was in a good mood, good vibe. Everyone had caffeine in them. We were all having a great time. So the 10 miles is like the easiest part. That's what everyone has trained before. That's what people do just regularly. The real struggle was miles 30 to 40. That's where you start to see people fatigue and drop. For me personally, that's where I noticed my first bit of suffering. Miles 10 to 20, amazing. Like that's what you've been training for this whole time. Your body should be aware, should be fully in the know-how of how to handle that. But then miles 30 to 40 come, and that's where you're kind of okay, I haven't been here too often, but I know what it's like. Personally, I was stupid enough to not carry enough water. I underestimated how much I would need in the heat. So by the time it was like mile 40, it had already been 12 p.m. So peak heat was coming. And so instantly my body was cramping, especially my quads. If you're cramping, you need to understand your balance required of sodium chloride, potassium, calcium, and know how much water to balance that out with so your ratio is in check and you're not cramping. That's one of my hardest learning lessons is like cramps, especially if you're holding more mass, your body's going to need more water and electrolytes. So around mile 40, that's where my first suffering started to happen. Luckily, I had the best support crew ever. They met me there, they fed me, they changed my clothes. And this is where I fucked up because I went from wearing trail runners to now wearing soft, cushiony road running shoes. And that's where I really messed up. I shouldn't have done that because within 5 miles, from miles 40 to 45, I had way more impact coming from the ground from the spring-loaded cushion of the step. And I noticed my foot was starting to really hurt. And then I stepped on this one rock wrong and boom, snap. Something popped in my foot and just like instant pain and agony. I had never felt it before. I was like, oh my God, is this it? Like, am I done from this race? So that was a big turning point for me because it was either I call it here about just almost halfway, or I suck it up and I prepare for some serious suffering for the next 20 hours after I've trained for this for 9 months, brought my whole family out, everyone's here watching me. So naturally, what I did was I sucked it up. And this is where the race really began for me. I had met this guy on an ATV, I think his name was Doug, and he was really helping just organize the entire race. But he had a first aid kit. I was like, Doug, please, I'm hurting so bad. Do you have any sort of tape? He gave me tape. I wrapped my foot so tight that the stress fracture was like really holding together, and the pain was somewhat more manageable than if it wasn't held together. And then I just started slogging away. I had my poles trekking through the gravel, and I was just going into the night. And this is where mile 50, 55, 60 starts to creep in, and it's pitch black. It's like I'm going through the forest, the trees, it's completely black. I have my headlamp, and that is guiding me in the 5 meters ahead. But from the left to the right, nothing. No lights, you're completely in wilderness, and that's where the panic starts to kind of set in. Like, holy fuck, I'm by myself, I'm in the middle of the forest, I'm injured, I can't sprint away if I have to. I would just slog away at whatever's coming at me. And that's where probably the scariest part of the race happened. Luckily, I met with my sister, who is also an Ironman athlete, and my girlfriend, who's an Ironman athlete. And they were both very prepared for me to be super down, super fatigued. Luckily, my girlfriend was able to support me for the last half of the race. My sister was there logistically in charge of everything. She fucking killed it. It was so, so good. But right around that mile 60 mark is when I met these two guys, Mitchell and I believe Chris, and they helped me just by being around me because you're out there, you're all by yourself. And the scariest thing is like if something happens to me right now, I could not defend myself. I would be totally fucked. So Mitchell and Chris helped me tremendously. They helped me get to that next aid station where I met with my family and the crew. That's when things started to get a little bit better. We're talking mile 65 now, 70. And then I noticed that I was extremely hungry. My body was very low on calories. I was bonking really, really hard, but I was also really overhydrated with water and not enough electrolytes. So I was peeing, no joke, like 20 times in the span of an hour and a half. And I needed to get my body back into balance and just keep slogging away. So we make the turnaround point of the map, and then my girlfriend joins me for the last 50 kilometers, the last 30 miles. So that was about mile 70, and now we're heading back to the initial start point to finish the race. And it's still nighttime, it's still pitch black. This is where I start hallucinating like crazy. I'm seeing rocks in the distance, and I think it's a bear. And I'm seeing eyeballs in the bushes left and right to me, just glowing and staring at us. And this is really where pain was the highest it's ever been. I have a whole new relationship with pain because of this experience. But in that moment, all you can think about is one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. And eventually, after enough steps, the pain decides to ease off a little bit because it knows you're not going to stop. And then it's a little bit more manageable until it comes back. And then it's even more painful and even more agonizing. And you just keep slogging away until eventually you reach an aid station and then you just keep slowly, slowly chipping away. It's like the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And that's really what it felt like. But in the moment, it was like, this feels like it's never going to end. I don't know if I can do this, but we're still here, one foot in front of the other, getting the steps. And ultimately, that's what got me through the race. Obviously, having my girlfriend there supporting me and helping me was a huge help. But I think I hallucinated so much of that, my brain kind of just turned off, shut down during the entire thing, that was in a moment of like survival. And the craziest thing about this event is that the map went, you go out, you come back to the start line, and then you go out again, and you come back to the start line. And it wasn't like the Ironmans that I'm used to, where it's so heavily organized and you have all these fans and people and barricades. It's literally like a group of people got together, charged an entry fee, and they were like, okay, run down this trail this much, and then come back, and you'll cross the finish line, and we're going to give you a buckle. So it was a completely different experience. If you're doing an Ironman, you're going to notice that it's like super, super hyped up and it's this crazy event. But if you're doing a 100-mile ultramarathon, it's nothing like that. So the map was pretty interesting how it was like that. The organization, the people that were helping, it was just like a weekend activity, just something fun to do over the weekend. It wasn't anything like what they have at the actual Ironman races. So just a fair warning if you're coming from Ironmans and doing this. So now we're approaching mile 83 to 85, and there's a cutoff checkpoint of, I think, around like 6 a.m. You have to be there or else they're going to shut you down from the race and take you out. And so this was like 15 minutes away from this checkpoint. I almost didn't make it. My foot's in so much pain. I'm just slogging away, and I have to not sprint, but really jog and just move as fast as I can, and just so much pain in the foot. Eventually, my sister joins me and my girlfriend, and we make it all together just in time. I think I saved like 2 minutes before the cutoff point there. I sat down, I recouped, ate food, took off some layers because it was starting to get warm, and then back into it the last 15 miles. And I kid you not, this 15 miles felt like the whole entire 100-mile race in one go. It just was like the most excruciating, the most painful. Had to stop, sit down, and scream and just let it all out and keep going. Like, you have no choice but to just keep going ahead at it. I think right around mile 90, we see an elk with probably 20 of the children and women of the elk run through the forest, and then they come into the path in front of us. They're just sprinting by, like, so much noise. It was crazy. And then the male, the alpha of the herd, comes in, he stops, looks at us. I have this video on my Instagram. It's fucking amazing. And then he just chills, looks back forward, and then keeps moving ahead. And that was like phenomenal to us. It was this crazy moment of nature where the sun's rising, the sky's pink, there's an elk. It was like, holy crap, this is a whole nother level. So the last 10 miles, it was really just a matter of, I know I'm gonna make it now. I just have to keep pushing, and I'm not gonna quit because that's not who I am. I'm not somebody that commits to something and then doesn't show up and quits, especially with everyone there watching me and making sure that they're there to support me. So last 10 miles, slogging away, finally I'm approaching the finish line, and I have this rush of endorphins just come over me, and it was like something I've never felt in my entire life. It was this feeling like I was tapping into a part of my soul or a part of my brain that I've never been to before, and it was unlocking for me. And I just crying, tears down my face. I crossed the finish line. I let out a huge scream. I hug my family, and then my 2 minute high goes away, and I collapse, sit in the car, fall asleep, and it was like, wow, thank God that I'm done. That was the fucking hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. So the recovery, I knew it was going to be bad, but I did not expect that I would be in crutches. I literally had to crutch around and crawl around the house for the next 3 days. I was sleeping like 12 hours a day. It was horrible. And the ramifications it had on my body afterwards, I couldn't really even hit legs for like a month after. And then running, I didn't even run until like 8 weeks or like 6 weeks after the race because I was just so sick of it, and all I wanted to do was just relax. So one of the biggest takeaways from this race that I had is, in life you will experience suffering no matter what. So it's better to be prepared for that suffering by having gone through chosen suffering than to not be prepared and then life throws something your way and you've never experienced pain, so you just react in a very emotional, irrational, and almost unjust way. So for me, it was a way to build a relationship with pain that I've never felt before. And I believe that I did that because now in my real life, my day to day, I see pain and stress and all these things as a way to build myself up, not as something that's harmful to my health. So remember that pain isn't something to be feared. It's just a response mechanism from your body that is ultimately telling you what's going wrong. And if you can take a moment to just sit and breathe and relax with that pain, then you can navigate some incredibly hard challenges and and accomplish some incredibly amazing things. So with my 100 mile being all finished, my next goal was to bench 405, get all my strength back. I did that as well. I have a video on that if you want to check it out and how I did it, my training and everything. But now my next project is strong, fast, big. Achieve ultimate strength, achieve ultimate speed, and hypertrophy. So just like look good, feel good, have that self-confidence in your body image. And if you want to follow the journey, click below to link to my Instagram, see everything from my supplement, my meals, my training. And if you want to see more videos like this, just click the subscribe button below, like the video, and I'll see you soon.